Alright guys, so the UFC middleweight division has had so many fight announcements and just crazy stuff that's been happening in the last few days. We got word that Du Plessis is injured and can't fight Israel Adesanya. Sean Strickland is going to be stepping in. We just got Hamza Chimaev, Paulo Costa. We got Imavov, Ikram Aliskerov. Chris Curtis versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. We got Kelvin moving away class. Caio Borralho fighting Ruzi Boyev. I mean, we got a lot of crazy stuff happening here in the middleweight division. But in this video, I wanted to matchmake things. I really wanted to matchmake and give an outlook and an idea of what everyone should be doing in the middleweight division, who should fight who, and what I actually think is going to happen. So we're going to actually start with the champion, Israel Adesanya. I think it's set in stone at this point that him versus Sean Strickland is going to be the main events of UFC 293. Obviously, they have not signed, but if Du Plessis is injured, that is the only rightful fight to make, is Sean Strickland and Israel Adesanya. Alex Pereira is moving up to the light heavyweight division, so we don't really have to matchmake him. Robert Whittaker's next fight. A lot of people were saying him versus Strickland. I disagreed with that. I would actually say probably give him a big layoff in the UFC's middleweight division and then set up a rematch with him and Jerry Cannonier in 2024 in a 5-round main event. Because last time it was only 3 rounds and Cannonier was doing very good and was able to win one of those rounds. I'd like to see if Whittaker can still compete. I know he can in the middleweight division, but I'd love to see 5 rounds of Jerry Cannonier and Robert Whittaker. So I think Jared and Robert are both going to have a little bit of a layoff here till maybe the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, where I say number 3, number 4, get both of them back right into title contention in the middleweight division in a 5-round UFC fight night. Again, Sean Strickland, I think, is going to fight fight Adesanya in the middleweight division, and Marvin Vettori. That's an interesting one because he does have a win over number 7 Paulo Costa, number 9 Roman Dolidze, number 10 Jack Hermansson, and then Derek Brunson's coming off a loss in his last 2 fights to Du Plessis and Cannonier, so he's not going to go up there. Marvin Vettori, I'd say, should probably get a big step down at this point because he's already fought most of the guys in the top 10 of the middleweight division. Let's bring some new blood into the top 5 of the middleweight division in form of Brendan Allen. Brendan has been calling for top 5 guys. He said he wants Vettori, Cannonier, or Robert Whittaker next as number 3, number 4, and number 5. I do believe a Marvin Vettori, Brendan Allen UFC Fight Night main event could make some sense, or put it as on the main card of a UFC fight night. I think that also does make some sense. So number 5 versus number 11. Paulo Costa, as we know, is fighting number 4 welterweight Hamza Chimaev in the middleweight division at UFC 294. Derek Brunson, he's obviously going to have to fight someone ranked below him. But I think he has to wait. After taking the damage that he has taken in his last 2 fights, let's give Brunson a little bit of a break. And I'll kind of reveal who I think he should fight next in a little bit. Roman Dolidze, he just got word that he has a fight scheduled. I don't think it's anyone ranked above him. I don't think it's going to be Brendan Allen either. All of these guys have fights. He already beat Jack Hermansson right there. And who's the next guy coming off a win streak in the rankings? It is Joe Pyfer. I think Joe Pyfer, Roman Dolidze in the middleweight division makes some sense, in my opinion. Let's do that. Let's do it indeed. Jack Hermansson, I would say we're going to have to give him a little bit of a break as well because he is coming off an injury. And we do have an Anthony Fluffy Hernandez fight coming up with him and Chris Curtis in the middleweight division. We also do have Caio Borralho and Nursultan Ruzi Boyev in the middleweight division as well. I would say the winner of that one, Anthony Hernandez, would be ranked after the Chris Curtis win, and most likely, I think they're going to try to build him a little bit slower. But I think the winner of Caio Borralho and Nursultan Ruzi Boyev at UFC Sao Paulo would deserve a top 15 fight 100%, and even a top 10 guy in Jack Hermansson, so that's what I would do. Jack Hermansson versus Caio Borralho or Nursultan Ruziboyev. I already said Brendan Allen versus Marvin Vettori. Kelvin Gastelum's going to welterweight to fight number 6 Shavkat Rakhmonov. Nasruddin Imavov is taking on Ikram Aliskerov at UFC 294. And Andre Muniz, coming off that last loss, is fighting a guy coming down in Paul Craig this weekend, I believe, at UFC London. Again, Chris Curtis has his fight with Anthony Hernandez as well. So that kind of matches up the entire top 15 and what I'd like to see happen next. We do have Bruno Silva there, coming off the Brendan Allen loss, the Gerald Meerschaert, the Alex Pereira one. But he did get a good win on Brad Tavares as well. He doesn't deserve the rank fight at this point. I believe he deserves to get an up-and-comer in the UFC middleweight division. And that up-and-comer is my man, Jun Yong Park. I don't think Jun Yong is going to get a top 15 guy next. But they're going to have a Korea card coming up very, very soon with Chan Sung Jung taking on Max Holloway. I'd love to see Jun Yong Park take on Bruno Silva. If Jun Yong Park wins that one, get him right inside of the top 15 of the middleweight division. Makes all the sense in my opinion. Brad Tavares already has the fight. He's taking on Chris Weidman at UFC 292. Gregory Rodriguez, since his last loss, is taking on Denis Tiolinin. GM3, Gerald Meerschaert is taking on Andre Petrosky. We already said Nursultan Ruziboyev is fighting Caio Borralho. We got another one here in Edmund Shabazian, losing to Derek Brunson, Jack Hermansson, Nasruddin Imavov, beating Dolce Lungiambula, but then losing to Anthony Hernandez. We're going to have to build him up a little bit, try to give him a decent enough matchup that he could very well go out there and win against another good striker and make it a very, very fun fight. One of those that I like to see would be Armen Petrosyan versus my man Edmund Shabazian. Armen does have good takedown defense. It would make for a very, very fun striking match. Armen Petrosyan, Edmund Shabazian striking for 3 rounds in the co-main event of a fight night. That sounds like an absolutely fun fight. In my opinion, we've had 2 fun fights for Petrosyan and AJ Dobson and Leroy Duncan. I'd love to see Edmund Shabazian and Armen Petrosyan. Makhmud Muradov is fighting this weekend. Bruno Ferreira. I mean, he did beat Gregory Rodriguez, but he lost right after that one. This one is simple. He's coming off a pretty bad loss, where he did take a lot of damage in the middleweight division. We got a fight right below that in Shidi Njokuani and Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. I think the winner of that one versus Bruno Ferreira is a banger. I mean, Chidi Njokuani is on a 2-fight losing streak, losing to Gregory Rodriguez and Albert Duraev while beating legit guys like Marc-Andre Barriault and Dusko Todorovic. Taking on Michael Oleksiejczuk, who's also coming off a loss. I think the winner there gets back up in the rankings. Not a lot, not a big push, but right to Bruno Ferreira, which is an absolute banger in the middleweight division. That sounds like a whole lot of fun. Phil Hawes lost to Chris Curtis, lost to Roman Dolidze and Ikram Aliskerov. Did beat ranked Nasruddin Imavov, knocked out decision Kyle Dawkins, knocked out Deron Wynn, and knocked out Jacob Malkoun. He is on a 2-fight losing streak though, so we're going to have to find him someone lower in the UFC rankings as of right now. And someone lower coming off some wins. That could make sense. Roman Kopylov, Claudio Ribeiro winner. I like that. I do like that indeed, because Roman did lose to Carl Roberson. That was a long time ago. Lost to Albert Duraev. But then he showed really, really good striking, knocking out both De Chirico and Punahele Soriano. I think we have a very good striking match on our hands in a matchup with Phil Hawes as well as Roman Kopylov. Roman's takedown defense has been tested, but not tested in a while, so I'd like to give him a little bit of a test there. In the middleweight division, I think he beats Claudio Ribeiro, and I think they set up that fight the end of 2023. Next guy is Rodolfo Vieira, coming off a win on Cody Brundage, lost to Chris Curtis, and lost to Anthony Hernandez, beat Dustin Stolzfus, Saprovic Saparov. A lot of solid guys that Rodolfo has beaten. But we're going to have to feed him at this point. We're going to have to feed him. I don't know if you guys are going to like this, but let's do Bo Nickal and Rodolfo Vieira. Rodolfo is not necessarily the absolute best striker in the UFC middleweight division, and Bo, if he's able to defend submissions, he could very well win that fight on the mat, and possibly even outstrike Rodolfo Vieira. I don't think a win over Cody Brundage gets Rodolfo back up into the rankings. I think one more, and then you talk about Rodolfo going back up in the rankings. And Bo doesn't need a huge step up after Jamie Pickett, Val Woodburn, and Donovan Beard, but we're not going to give him an absolute layup in the UFC's middleweight division. We're not going to these like very, very, very low level guys like a Dusko Todorovic or someone like that. I think a fight with these two guys does make a lot of sense to be made next in the middleweight division. It's still a good test for Bo Nickal, fighting a ace jiu-jitsu guy in Rodolfo Vieira. Marc-Andre Barriault coming off a decision to Eric Anders and then a knockout win on Julian Marquez. Did lose to solid guys in Angel Kawani and Anthony Hernandez. He is looking to get a little bit of a step up in competition, but I think he's going to have to wait just a little bit right now for the loser of one of those up-and-coming fights. And one of those that I like to see would be Marc-Andre Barriault versus the loser. Let's do the loser of Junyoung Park and Bruno Silva. I think they set that one up for the Korean card later on this year. Marc-Andre Barriault takes a little bit of a layoff after his last two fights. And I do Marc-Andre Barriault versus the loser of Junyoung Park and Bruno Silva. Still a good step up in competition for him. He's just going to have to wait a little bit for that. And if he doesn't want to wait, well, we're probably going to give him someone ranked a little bit lower in those UFC rankings, in maybe a Jacob Malkoun at UFC 293 if he wants to set a fight right now. That'd be the only thing, because Jacob's only really lost to Phil Hawes and Brendan Allen, beat AJ Dobson, Abdulrazak Alhassan, and Nick Maximov. He is deserving of a step up, so we could do Jacob Malkoun, Marc-Andre Barriault if Mark doesn't want to wait. But if he doesn't want to wait, we can give him a good step up against the loser of Junyoung Park and Bruno Silva. Where are we at now? Abdul Razak El Hassan. Now, he lost to Munir Lazzez, Chaos Williams, Malkoun, beat the Chirico, lost to Joaquin Buckley, and beat Claudio Ribeiro. At this point, a win over Claudio Ribeiro is not going to do much for you. You're not going to get a big push in the UFC middleweight division. I still want to see one more good performance and another good finish from Abdulrazak Alhassan in the middleweight division before I'm like, all right, we're gonna give him a good step up at this point in the middleweight division. And the very, very lower level guys on here could make some sense. Some of them don't make too much sense, like maybe a Nick Maximov, Dusko Todorovic, all fun fights. But I think we go a little bit lower than that in a guy that actually had a decent win last time around, got destroyed in his first fight, had a decent win in his second one in Cedriques Dumas. Cedriques Dumas versus Abdulrazak Alhassan makes some sense in my opinion. Albert Duraev, he's going to have to go down a little bit in those UFC rankings, but not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. I mean, he beat Roman Kopylov, he's beaten a lot of good guys in this UFC middleweight division. I don't want to push him down too far in the UFC middleweight division rankings. I still want to give him a fun fight. I still want to give him a legit matchup for him that is winnable. But, I mean, coming off that loss, I think we have to rule out who is the better wrestler and grappler Russian of the middleweight division and put them together. I say Aliaskov Kazirev coming off the Denis Chelinin win in the UFC. Undefeated, I got him versus Albert Duraev, just to keep one bearded Russian in the rankings of the top 50. Weidman's got a fight. Mikhail Shezhuk taking on Chidi and Jokowani. Darren Till's no longer in the UFC. Ian Heinisch, I think he's also no longer in the UFC. Abus Magomedov. Now that's interesting. We already did Roman Kopylov and Jacob Malkoun. But Abus Magomedov, we're going to have to give him just a fight that gets him right back into the finishes. Because Sean Strickland won, you know, he wasn't looking too good there. It was not looking too good at all in that fight, in my opinion. We're going to have to give him a fight that he could easily go out there and get a really, really good finish in the UFC's middleweight division. And I'm trying to think. Right now. He beat Dustin Stoltzfus. A lot of these other guys are no longer inside the UFC. There is Abdul Lazy King Abdul and a lot of guys that are outside of the UFC on these rankings. There's not a lot of guys that would make sense for Abus Magomedov right now. But we got to think of what would be a good matchup. And I don't know if Dusko is still in the UFC. I want to see. Because I think that could get him another good finish, though. Dusko, UFC roster watch. Images. He might still be in the UFC. I don't know. Dusko Todorovic. Some of these guys, I don't know if they're still in the UFC or not. Dusko, I think he might be. There's nothing really saying that he's no longer in the UFC. So let's do that one. Abus Magomedov just getting another good win on Dusko Todorovic. I think that's just a good finish for him, honestly. I don't want to give him an absolute bum, but there's not many options here in the middleweight division. Eric Anders, I think he should retire at this point. Or they do Punahele Soriano and Eric Anders. Julia Marquez should probably go down in the rankings a little bit, fight an up-and-comer after that last 2 losses. And I think a Tresean Gore fight would actually, oh my God, would actually be very, very fun, in my opinion, so I do that. So, Christian Leroy Duncan, I don't know, probably give him a debut guy. I've done a lot. We've matched up like the top 60 of the UFC middleweight division, but that's those are my thoughts. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. See you in the next one.